Hello all, and welcome to another edition of the Low Code Cafe. This is November 9, 2022, episode 116. Today we've got a great topic. We'll talk about the building of a multi-source search from a number of different database queries, bringing information together to form a knowledge base. Before we get into that, let me introduce myself. I'm Dale Warner, Head of Support for Plantinap, and I'm joined today on the panel. We have Jim Everett and Patrick Anderson, and let's get started. This is an event we hold every Wednesday, this hour, for our community to talk about hands-on low coding and stories and tips from our team and our community. We invite you to be our guest speaker. If you have something that would be of interest to the community at large, we would love to have you join us. All of our past editions are recorded on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/plantinap. We encourage you to go there, subscribe to the channel and to the alerts, so you know when we've posted things. I was talking to a potential customer this week and found that this was a resource that he used to learn far more about us, and felt like he knew me before we even had a chance to talk for the first time. So we're glad that people are using that, and it's a very good resource of a lot of different content. Today I'll be covering some product roadmap updates briefly, and then short from the trenches segment, talking about what happens in support. But our biggest piece is the multi-source search that will be handled with Jim Everett. You can engage with us in a number of different ways. There is our chat window, the Q&A. You can raise your hand and we'll recognize you from the chair. And then at the tail end here, we'll have a feedback form. So any of those ways, we would love to hear from you. So quickly, product roadmap update. I covered this in depth in our last episode. If you missed it, I encourage you to look at episode 115. But our major direction is version control and developer experience. That is currently in beta testing. That beta testing window is open from last Friday until this Friday, November 4th to the 11th. And we are now targeting a release date of Tuesday, November 15th. So unless we get any showstoppers, anything that makes us want to hold back, we will, based on beta testing and our internal user acceptance testing, it'll be out for public use on November 15th. The major directions, the major things that are included in this is we have these new large initiatives, the multi-environment orchestrator, which is necessary for version control. And so for people who are on-premise users of Plantinap, you'll use this MEO, the multi-environment orchestrator, to work with version control. But whether you are on-premise or not, you'll have the ability to use version control going forward. That's a story that's in progress. We are introducing the piece of the puzzle where you can selectively send content from your Plantinap application, your development work, into a Git repository. And that's an ongoing story. Again, we'll be adding to that to where you can pull content back from Git or retrieve it in the next higher environment. So, for example, being able to go from user acceptance testing development to user acceptance testing system to a production system. We've also introduced token autocomplete and action validation. So both of these things making the developer experience easier. Those have been introduced in automation, which is something that that's part of our continuing large initiatives, the rewrite of our user interface for developers, so that it's easy, so that we're easier to work with. So just a reminder, we are rolling these features out, like token autocomplete and action validation, in the automation section of the product. There's many other major areas like the API section or forms or listings, the configuration screens for those. Those we are starting to expand out from automation to rewrite, for example. I believe our next one will be in APIs, but over the course of the next several releases, all these administrative user interfaces will be updated. There are a number of other continuous improvement type items. There are various hotfixes and small improvements. And then we're releasing updates to our documentation. So all these things were discussed at length in the last episode. And if they're of interest to you, I encourage you to take a look at that one. From the trenches of support, we have some hotfixes to talk about this week. Previously, we've released 28 hotfixes to version 122, and there's 4 new ones here. The first is an enhancement to forms, where when you have connected forms, which is a feature where you have several forms that work together, when you have multiple forms on different tabs using a Tabs Pro module, the focus is going to be moved to the first tab. If you hit submit and there's a required field or something that doesn't pass validation, it's going to move to the first tab that has one of those. So that'll help users find the things that don't pass validation. From a bug fix standpoint, we fixed there were certain actions that didn't work with connected forms, and that was resolved. We have a feature in listings where you can group buttons together, and that was being disturbed if you had an error when you were updating your data source. It's kind of a minor thing, but certainly inconvenient. And so when we found that, and that was reported to us, it was fixed quickly. And then there was a minor error in the users page that when you were editing and deleting users that we fixed as well. So a few bug fixes, and if you're encountering any of those, we encourage you to install these hotfixes from our hotfixes page. There is another one that I just wanted to mention. When you're upgrading now, coming from earlier versions to and you arrive at version 122, we have a breaking change, and the breaking change is that it's detailed here, but the idea is that our migration scripts going into version 122 require that the SQL user that's connected to DNN operates has a SQL user, and they must be in the role of DB owner in order for it to upgrade properly. We are in the process of rethinking whether or not that's a good idea to have that requirement. It was introduced unintentionally in our upgrade script, so we may be removing that, but at the moment it's a requirement to get to version 122. This isn't an issue for people that are using our hosted plans. When we control the infrastructure, we set it up, we set the user up as a DB owner. But if you're an on-premise user, or for whatever reason, if you're not sure that your SQL user is a DB owner, there's an easy way to check. But we want to make sure you have that so that your upgrade experience is a good one into that version. Beyond that, I'll just encourage you to engage in the low-code campfire. It's Friday, this same hour every week. And I'll have a link for you to get to that in just a moment. But that is a meeting format as compared to a webinar format. There's a lot of give and take, and the opportunity for you to engage with your other users of Plant and App. Let's do links for this episode. I'll put them here on the chat here in just a minute as we get started into our next segment. But this will give you the opportunity to register in advance for the low-code campfire, what we were just talking about, and then get to our YouTube channel, the community portal, and our webinar feedback form, all of which we encourage you to use. With that, we're going to go to hands-on low coding. I'm going to invite Jim to the discussion here, but Jim Everett is the head of education and skills, and he has been the ringleader on our project to build a knowledge base. And so that is where we are going to be building. He'll describe it in depth, but the idea is we're bringing in information from a number of different sources and building a search. So Jim, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
All right, I'm
Ready to go.
Stop sharing and excuse me, and let you let you take the helm for this segment.
Yes, thank you, Dale. As Dale has said, this session is inspired from a wider project that we're building on at the moment, which is to try and bring together all the different sources of information that Plant and App over the years has generated and make it searchable, to provide a common taxonomy of categories, so you have a common language with which to search, and to provide a single customized searching interface. At the moment, the main sources that we're looking at are these four. The first one, the YouTube videos, as Dale has already mentioned, the Load Code Cafe now, with 115, soon to be 116 different videos covering a wide range of topics and a lot of very useful material. It's searchable within YouTube, but it's not part of a wider search. We've also got the Plant and App documentation, which is being actively enhanced and improved, and that's the other main source we wanted to bring in. We have our academy with Lesssons, providing an introduction to low code and a detailed introduction to the platform. So those are the three Plant and App generated content sources that we're wanting to bring together under a unified comprehensive search. We're also aware that there's the opportunity for community contributed content, and this is something we'll be talking about in more detail over the coming weeks and months. And this is really inspired by all of the great work in the community forum, where people ask questions, and members of the community often provide very insightful and useful answers within the context of that question. But the intention is to use that as a springboard to capture some of those most insightful responses and produce those into articles that will complement these other sources of information. So what are the technical challenges we're facing? Well, we've got the different sources. Three of them at least are under our control, the document management and the academy and the forthcoming community contributions, but they're separated on different applications in the Plant and App constellation. And then of course we've got the content which is owned and mastered by YouTube that we're trying to pull out. We've got the challenge of applying a single taxonomy to all of these different sources and to ensure that they're tagged consistently. And then there is the challenge of bringing that together in a single search experience. Just to emphasize, what we're talking about at the moment is very much an early stage, sort of alpha stage of development for internal purposes. But we thought there were some interesting general lessons that could be learned for anyone who's wanting to take advantage of search within their environment. So what are the design principles we've adopted? Well, we want to make sure that all of the different sources are exposed using SQL queries, and as much as possible in a common format of SQL, a common response with the same sorts of columns coming back. From the categorization point of view, we want to be applying the taxonomy at source where possible, and to use Plant and App type tools where we can. And also that the the terms in the taxonomy should be mastered centrally. So why are we making life so difficult for ourselves? Is there not a better way or a simpler way of doing this? One option we considered was just using the search tool's ability to scrape web pages, which is very easy to set up, and you can point it at a collection of web pages and it will index the content. One of the main reasons we chose not to go down that route is that on YouTube particularly, but also on the documentation side, the web page as it's presented to the user has quite a lot of extraneous content on it. Particularly YouTube stuffs an awful lot of other stuff in there. And we wanted to make sure the indexing was very much on the content that was key to the user. And also this approach wouldn't have allowed us to apply this categorization, this taxonomy, across the different sources. Of course, we could have avoided using the categorization, but as anyone who's worked with Plant and App for a while will know, there is a diversity of terminology used, some of it historic, some of it evolving, and very often when a particular topic is being discussed in detail, it's not always obvious from the content that's stored what categories, what broader categories are being discovered. So a simple index wouldn't expose these higher level categories. So what are we presenting today? Well, we're going to talk a little bit about our taxonomy structure, and we're going to present some examples of how we've begun to index the YouTube content and also the documentation through the documentation management application into the internal application, which is known as AutoDoc. And we'll show a little bit about the initial stages of the search configuration. So our taxonomy has three main facets to it. Let's see if I can move that. Yeah, there we go. We have an audience taxonomy, which identifies the users or the audience of the developer, the type of developer who might be interested in this particular content. I mean, these are terms that we've tended to use in quite a lot of our discussions on YouTube. The idea that there are people who are pro coders, the people who are comfortable in Visual Studio. There are the people who are no coders, who really are wanting to use the Plant and App product as it is and fill out the configuration and use it. And then there's this group in the middle, the low coders, who are primarily using the product as it's designed, but are happy to add a bit of SQL, add a bit of JavaScript, add a bit of additional logic. So we've added those as the audience. And we've come up with a initial taxonomy for the topics, the broad levels of topic. So a list that's fairly familiar to most people. By using these as entities, and rather than just a key value list, we're able to provide things like synonyms. As I say, there's a diversity of language that's used over the years. So themes and skins is one of the terms that's used interchangeably. And we're also able to provide this additional information and the additional description. And the intention is through the customized search interface that you'd be able to use these synonyms in your searching, and also get the descriptive hints as you're looking at the results, so that you know that if it's tagged with SQL, that includes things like stored procedures, database functions. If you're looking at roles, where it's authorization and all aspects of authorizing content. We've also got categories for the type of content, so video or text, and no, the content format is video and text, and content type. And this is meant to give you a hint as to what the type of resource is there. So obviously documentation, but also tips and deep dive case studies and tutorials. So that provides our taxonomy with the different 4 different facets. And we want to keep those separate so that you can drill down into the audience and into the topic. And as anybody who's familiar with the contents of the low-code cafe, you'll know that many of the videos will cover a number of different topics and be suitable for a number of different audiences. So it may include elements of low-code and pro-code, or elements of no-code and low-code. So we've got, by using this taxonomy, we're able to tag things with multiple audiences and multiple topics. Also, using this approach allows us to expose the taxonomy to other applications using APIs. And we have the built-in APIs, which are automatically generated, but we have we've added 2 additional APIs, which give us the audiences and topics for consumption by other applications.
And so, I mean, just for example, we have our stuff spread out, our different sources spread out in different places. So we're defining these in a central place, and then defining this taxonomy in a like topics in a central place, and then being able to consume it, to be able to tag things all with the same tags, regardless of where it happens to live. You know,
that's right. Yes, there is a knowledge base application which acts as the hub for all of this, and from there we're exposing the topics and exposing the audiences as an API, and in other ways, as well. So we can consume it elsewhere.
Yep, and for anybody who's watched any of our other videos, it's relatively easy to grab a list like this from as an item data source, for example, and be able to tag you tag that content just using this data from a central spot.
Absolutely, yeah. We might, depending on how time goes, we might be able to demonstrate that a little bit. So that's the taxonomy side of things, and how we're providing a central source for that. Oops, jumped a bit further than I expected then. So the first data source we talked about was the YouTube videos, specifically the descriptions, and it's a little redundant. Well, anybody it seems rather redundant to show this, as we're already on YouTube for many people, but we have the description as part of the video, and that's what we're pulling in, and that's what we're going to use to index. And I think this quite nicely demonstrates all the other stuff that would be on a page if we tried to scrape it. So how are we bringing that? How are we bringing those descriptions in? We're primarily using workflows which query the YouTube API and extract the description and put it into an entity on this site. So we have a number of workflows that loop through it and call each other, and eventually we end up with a entity which we have rather innovatively called search index, which, as we can see here, we've got all the most recent videos, well, actually all the videos now are in there, waiting to be tagged Some of them we've done as an initial run through. And we can see here, so here's the description that's pulled out of the YouTube, using the YouTube API. We've got the thumbnail link, which is again pulled out through using the YouTube API, and the actual URL of the video. And for the tagging, we've got the linked entities, so we can add and remove the audiences, add and remove the topics, and that provides us with a searchable source that we can use in our search index. But when someone consumes that search, they will not be directed to the entity here; they'll be directed to the website.
So, Jim, you flashed up that workflow, and that looked kind of interesting. So that was the ability to get information from YouTube and pull it into a database, right? That was the purpose of that.
That's what that does. Where has it gone? I'll close that.
That's okay. I'm just thinking that might be an interesting topic for our Integrate Anything series, where the ability to grab information from YouTube would probably be something of interest to our community as well.
Yes,
so
I think it's one of these. Come back here. Yeah, and it's one of these things that's take a bit too long to go through it just now. So I think, but that's the mechanism it uses. YouTube exposes a rich API, and among the things that you can do is pull out the description and other metadata about the video. And we pull that in, and that's what we use to search.
We have a question from the floor, which is interesting. Does the ability to get to the transcripts, are those being included in our search? Do we have access to the transcripts of the videos?
Transcripts is not something that I've had a look at yet. If it's available in the YouTube API, we should be able to get to it. In the investigation I did of the API, I didn't notice anything about transcripts, but I wasn't specifically looking for it. But that is something that I will investigate in advance of doing the next session, which is the more detailed session on the API.
But that really is a great question, because we do I think, Patrick is behind the scenes here doing a great job of capturing what we're talking about in terms of topics. But if we were able to index on that transcript as well, that might provide even a richer search experience. So great question, Mark. Thank you.
Yes, so as I say, we've got so we have an entity and relationships within the entity. We've also added to that entity, we've added a status column, which allows us to hide, remove from our search index query the records that we haven't tagged yet, or ones that we've decided probably aren't suitable to go into the search index. So that's something that's added. So have a quick look at the query that we've built. One of the challenges we're facing is how to best expose these categories. Having decided that categories are the things that we want to use in the search experience to help people get the best out of the search. How do we go from go from these categories that are linked entities? How do we go from them to the search interface? Now, what we have to do is create a semicolon separated list of values. And in order to make them hierarchical, so that we have all of the topic listings under the topics and all of the audience audience tags under audience. We need to use this notation here, which is you need to have the top level category / the subordinate level, and as I say, using the semicolon delimited. Now, unfortunately, that's not something that comes out of the box. So we've built this out of several different views. So, for example, just use the audience one.
So just making sure I understand that end result that you're getting, the topic tag, the audience tag, Search Boost is going to do magic things with that.
That's right. That's right.
When we improve our experience.
Yeah, when we configure the search, we'll see how these columns in the search results, in the query result, are used to set up the indexing. So in order to get them in that format, we need to do this join here, the string aggregate. What this does is it uses the joining table, the audience, the one that the ones that joins search index to the audience values. It takes all of those and wraps them up into a single line with a single string delimited by the semicolon. So if I run this query, this child query. So here's the ID and here's the tag.
Mm-hmm. So that's going to require a little bit of advanced SQL skills. You're showing the SQL in case anybody wants to try their hand at it. But putting this together, that might be one of the caveats that you might need some SQL skills to make something like this happen.
I think so. If you're looking at this sort of hierarchical categorization, and you've got multiple categories attached to a record using the linked entities approach from Plantinat, this is the sort of query you need to put together. Once you've done it, or once you've got one example, as I think a lot of people would know, once you've got one example, it's fairly easy to go to the others. So this is topic, practically the same query, just some slightly adjusted values, and that this one wraps up the topics that are linked into the semicolon delimited list. It's also got a second more human readable list that we'll show being exposed later. So these are saved as views, named views with the such topic index. So we wrap that all together in the top level query, which does a join on these to produce our output. And the intention is that we get an output like this that we can use from all the different sources.
Right. So we're essentially standardizing our data to all come into search so that it can be searched in one big.
That's right.
Big pile.
Yeah. Yep. And what search wants is it wants a single query or a single result set that it can consume and use the different columns. In fact, what we'll do is we'll look at the search configuration just now for that. So what we've done on this is we've removed the pages and folders. So the only thing that's being indexed are these database indexing rules. So everything else is blocked out. And here is the same query. So paste that query in there, load the columns, and here are the different columns from the search, and the ones we want to index, the ones we want to allow for the free free language search are description and the title. And we've got that URL column, so it will send people to the actual video itself. Brought in the ID, said what the title is. Rather, for this purpose, we're not using the description. We've got a very simple test template here, which will use the thumbnail, display the thumbnail, and show the description, and also the source, as well as a list of the fields using that human readable list of topics. As I say, the intention is to create a custom search results rendering, but at this stage, for the purposes of demonstrating that it works, we've gone with this. And here is where the categories come in. So the categories are actually spread across different columns in the query, but Search Boost can treat all of these columns as categories. We've got the date that it's published, so the date that the YouTube video is published, and whenever new published, there are records with more recent published dates, those will be indexed.
Mm-hmm.
And we're exposing a few other pieces of information. So let's save that. And just to make sure, we will run the reindex. And as I say, we've got a small subset at the moment that we've tagged to give us a flavour of what's going to come out. So let's have a look at the search. Actually, I can step through the process for doing that. We're using the standard skin. Come out of the way. There we go. So just. So here we go. This is the standard search results skin, and you can see all of the different categories are listed at the moment. But if we take our top level category, you can see underneath here, this particular video is tagged with these topics of listings, integrations, actions, APIs. And similarly, we can go to audience, and we can see this has been tagged with pro code. Let's see if I can use it.
So an end user experience might be, once they do an initial text search, you would be able to drill down by these different things. And
that's right. That's right. Yeah. What we'll have is the top is we'd have topic as a heading, we'd have audience as a heading, and then you could expand those out and drill down. And yeah, here we've got that. So we've got the thumbnail and where it's from. So low-code Café and channel, and we've got the different topics in a list there. So all of that is coming through. So we have this hierarchical search. So that's the intention. That's the intention behind the.
Yep. So when they find it, they'll be able to click and go directly. It'll take them directly to the YouTube, or if it's a community post or wherever they're coming from, they're going to be sent off to the initial source.
Yes, that's right. We have on the list of future enhancements to index down perhaps to the key timestamps and jump straight to the timestamp. That would require a bit more work, but that would certainly be possible to say to take someone straight into a particular point. But as I say, that's for a future development. We wanted to bring this out at least in this initial form first with the customized categorization.
Mm-hmm. Every project has phase one. got to push something to phase 2.
Yeah, yes, it might be slightly further than the yes, but it's a subsequent phase, definitely. So how do we add another database source? Well, the simple answer is that we add another database rule. So what are we working on for the documentation? So close the tabs to the right. So people will be familiar with the documentation site. It's
yeah,
nested.
put in a plug for learn.plananapp.com. Absolutely.
There we are, /docs, and there is a lot of information there that's been continually updated. So what drives this behind the scenes is a Plananapp application. Has it died? Has it gone to sleep? Yes, here we go. So it's a rather convoluted process. We have a Plananapp application, which then drives a Git repository, which then uses the Docusaurus static site generator to build the documentation site. So the detail is not particularly important for what we're talking about today. But that's the basic structure. Is that we have, again, entities here which have the content behind them. They have properties that determine whether or not they're a top level, they're a category, or whether they are actually a piece of content. So configuration. This one it's a node, so it's one of the entries in the menu that expands. But we're mainly interested in these ones that aren't nodes, that are the actual content.
Yeah. Put simply, every page on our documentation has a row in this AutoDoc, right? So we can grab all the pages just by pulling from rows in this AutoDoc.
That's right. And the ones we want to index are the ones that are not a category, and the ones that are live, and the ones that are not outdated.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we want to make sure that we're indexing the ones that we need. So the way that this has been built is, as Dale mentioned, we can bring in the list of categories using the APIs. So here is a joining table which allows us to link a sidebar item, which is the internal name for a page, with the ID of an audience. So this is a straightforward joining table. It was manually created rather than being generated through the generated by Plananapp itself, but it follows a very similar format in that it's a list of the name of the sidebar item and then which audience it's being linked to.
So again, we're just enhancing our information to have these common traits, that common things that'll be used in drill down or facets.
Yes. That's right. So if we look at the form here, where we edit, actually, I think I've got a better link to that. So here we go. We have the audiences list here, and if we look, here is our API that we saw from Knowledge Base, and this pulls out the centrally managed list of audiences, and similarly for the where's it gone? Come here. There we go. Yes, so here's the list of audiences as we've seen, and it's a multi-select and list of automations, not automations, list of topics here with the ones selected.
Yep. So that API you showed us earlier just being consumed to grab those out in these other applications that we have.
And to determine what's already selected, we have a token which looks at the table for this row and finds the ones that are already selected. So type audiences, and this produces in this case I didn't provide an ID.
Produces a nice.
It provides a common separated list of all of the audiences that are already ticked for that.
Yep.
For that one. So that's how we bring out the list of what's already selected, and then in the where are we? In the buttons, we've got add an update, which part of the process is to write the audiences and topics into the database from that. So that's how the tagging has been grafted onto the
existing AutoDoc,
the document management system. So we've got a set of tags that we're looking for, and one of the things, so that's how we set it up. One of the challenges we faced once we built that is producing the index query, and it needs to be in the same format as the last one. So we're wanting to have a result like this, which is so we've got our audience tag and our topic tags with this hierarchical structure. The problem we faced is that what's being stored in things like sidebar item audience are the IDs. And that led to a bit of head scratching at our end. So here's the query for using this. So similar to what we saw before, except this time instead of joining on that table, it joins on this view, because we found we were struggling to find a good way of getting the values back from the other table. Because of the way these two applications, their databases sit on the same SQL Server, we're able to use this. The user that drives the AutoDoc database has been granted select rights on the knowledge base, so it can then pull out these values. In fact, we could have probably used this as rather than the API as the source for the form and the way to set up the drop-down list. So both options would have worked, but we quickly demonstrated the other one, the other way of doing it. But it does allow us to produce this list, and we've ended up with the same columns pretty much as in the other query. So we have a few examples here. Let's see, move over slightly. So it's a similar sort of format. So now we need to include that in the knowledge base search. In order for knowledge base to be able to read that query, it needs to have a connection string. So the way that's set up is the user, the connection string for knowledge base is set up as a secondary data connection in knowledge base. So that then gives knowledge base the rights to access the no, it doesn't have that one. To access the AutoDoc query, which returns the searchable result set. So here we go. This is it set up. So that's the name of the connection string into AutoDoc, and in this case, I've saved that rather complicated query. Where it's gone? Oh, so I've lost it. A rather complicated query as a view, so we can produce the columns fairly easily. So very similar to the other one, we have the ID, we have the title and description being indexed, we have a URL which takes you to the actual page, the ID of the title. We've got a similar sort of layout to give us a common search experience. We're using topic tag and audience tag for our hierarchical categorization published. So a very similar structure and layout.
Yeah, so I'm just catching up a little bit. Our knowledge base needs to pull from AutoDoc. It's going to run a SQL query on AutoDoc to retrieve the data. And so we needed a connection to that database. So that's another possible solution. Whatever Search Boost can consume data from any SQL that it has a database connection to. And so
that's
we're
right.
just taking advantage of that feature to grab data directly out of. So knowledge bases is in effect pulling data from our documentation system.
Yeah, it's reaching into AutoDoc, finding that query, pulling the results back.
Nice.
So for the index, which is one of the main reasons why we've only got a few records included, because otherwise it would take a little time. So we had 4, and now we're up to 13 entries. And let's just close those to the right. So.
Right, so now we have some stuff from Learn. So we've got documentation, we've got
the low-code Café. Now, if we drop into topics and we choose integrations, now we've drilled down to just the knowledge base, low-code Café item in the search. But it shows using the common taxonomy across all of them. So if we only want to look at the pro code ones, there are 2 items that have been tagged as being suitable for pro code.
So if you clear the filters, just a second there. So if you're looking specifically for a video, you have the ability to click on videos and it filters out automatically, right?
Yes.
If you're looking for other types of content, and those are available also.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have the text one, but that's the idea. And as I say, this is just using the out of box search experience, and we're going to move these high-level topic, high-level categories to, like topic and audience and content format into selectable options rather than in this rather unfriendly list. But it demonstrates searching across all of the different sources.
Nice.
So that's where we've got to so far. Hopefully that's useful to at least show the two different data sources coming together. The next step is, as I say, to customize the search result rendering, also to customize the search request, the query form, so that you'll be able to put in your keyword and then pick which of the whether you want it to also filter for low code, also filter for particular topics, which should give you a much greater specificity for your search, and also to add links into the search results, so that you can drill down from the search results as well, or to search on from the search results from topics. You can click on APIs and see all the things for APIs, and continue to drill down and drill down and drill out, drill up.
Mm-hmm.
That's possible. So that's the next one. The next data source we're planning to include are the Academy lessons, and as I say, we'll be sharing our thoughts on community contributions and hopefully, in the fullness of time, soliciting contributions from the community over the coming weeks and months.
Perfect. So you're kind of coming. I see you're coming down to the end, and it's almost to the end of our hour, but we have a few minutes. So if you have any questions, please interact with us, either the Q&A or the chat, and we'll put Jim on the spot for a couple of more things here. In the meantime, Jim, I was just thinking this, and I know I've participated in Knowledge Base a little bit, but this was kind of an effort across our company to bring this stuff together. So something like this, it becomes a little project of its own to say, okay, you are the owner of this information, whether it's our documentation or our videos. How are we going to approach it? How do we standardize it? That was kind of the project that you've been running, right?
That's right. Yeah, I think it comes out of a recognition that finding. It's often the case that you've seen something or read something or heard something on a particular topic, but finding the wretched thing can be quite a challenge, as it could be in a number of different places. And to try and centralize that with as light a touch as possible without disturbing the existing bodies of data too much, which is why we're trying to graft on this taxonomy without making too much change to the underlying data.
It makes sense. Okay, if there's no other questions, I just want to thank you for the good job of presenting what I think is a necessary or could be a useful technique to our user base, using the built-in search capability to bring a bunch of information together and make it very accessible to a user base. I know that for me, before my Plantanet days, I was a user of the products and really hadn't appreciated the value of search. So I love it when we are able to demonstrate that aspect of our product. And so it's kind of one of those underused, but it's a great feature, can be used in many different ways. But good job for putting this together, and we look forward to the output, the end result of being able to search all of our various sources and have a very good and vibrant knowledge base. So thanks, Jim, for presenting.
Thank you.
Thank you all for attending. We'll have another. Again, you're invited to attend Campfire on Friday, but we'll have another episode of the Low Cost Cafe next Wednesday, the same hour. Thank you all.